Hey everyone, welcome to Empty Nest Creations. Today is the day that the IOD 2025 holiday collection goes live. I posted a video earlier today, but I wanted to come on tonight and just do a couple of projects. I know that some of these products can be a little scary to use. You may feel like it takes a lot of experience or expertise to use these products, and I just wanted to hop on tonight and show you how simple these projects are. This is not going to be a really long video. I've done a lot of prep work to prep some of these pieces ahead of time so I can just show you how to use the IOD products. The first two projects that we're going to work on tonight, we're going to use paint inlays. Now these are some that some of the products I was talking about that can be a little scary, just because it's not something that has been around forever and that we've all seen a million times. But they're not hard. It just takes a little patience to get these to work. So we're going to use this paint inlay tonight, the 12th night. And I'll show you on the back here. You get 8 pages of different paint inlays. And the great thing about paint inlays is that you can use these images up to 3 times. So once you use it the first time and you peel it off, you're going to lay it down flat and let it dry. That way you can use it again later on. So you get all of these different images, and you can cut them apart. You can use them as a whole sheet. So say for instance this Santa Claus one, you might want to have the Noel above it, so you might cut this border piece off and use that whole sheet together, or you can cut the Noel off and use it separately. You can use the Santa separately, and then maybe on another project you put them back together. So that's the great thing about these products, is that you get to choose how you use them. And so tonight we're going to be using 2 different, or actually we're going to use some of the borders, and we're going to use 2 different inlays. We're going to use this deer, and we're going to use this deer inlay. And so, like I said, I've already done some pre-painting for us tonight. Grab a tool here to open up my products. Okay, so I'm going to turn the camera down so you can see what we're working on tonight. So I picked up this framed plaque at the thrift store. I really love this because it has this wood like branch frame, and this is real branches from a tree that have been bent around here and attached to this frame. And so I went ahead and I painted this. It had seashells on it, and I'm going to use it for something. I just felt like the wood on here needed more of a nature look, not beach. So we're going to use this inlay. It's a beautiful green color. It's got the reindeer on here, and I thought this would be beautiful on our little frame here. So I went ahead and I painted the background using Fusion's paint in the color Chateau, and I did 3 coats of paint on here. I wanted to make sure that we had all of that previous image covered up. And for this project, there's a lot of different mediums that you can use with paint inlays. You can of course use paint, and we will use paint in one of the other projects. But for this one, we're going to be using Minwax Polyacrylic top coat, and this is the clear satin. It does have a little bit of a sheen to it, but it's not super glossy. And so what you want to do when you are going to use an inlay is you want to put a coat of whatever medium you're using down on your board. You're going to need a mister bottle or a spray bottle, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spray my inlay. Now the inlays have on the back side, there's a grid, and then there's the paint side. So you want to spray the paint side with water, and I'm just going to mist that lightly and let that kind of sit while we put our polyacrylic onto our frame. And you want to make sure that you get a nice, good, even coat of whatever medium you're using on your project piece. You want to make sure that anywhere that that inlay is going to be, that there is top coat down. And the good thing about this is that you can see where it's wet, and where it's shiny and where it's not shiny, and that'll help you to kind of make sure that you have the product everywhere that you need it. Now I'm just going to cover the whole piece because this does have a little bit of gloss, and we're going to put top coat on as well when we're finished. You want to make sure that you're smoothing it out as you go. Oops. Alright, so that's got a good coating on it now, and so now we're going to take our piece and look at the back and make sure that I have the hanger on the top, and we're going to take our little paint inlay that's now it's wet, and we're going to lay it into the top coat. And then we're going to spritz it with some more water. And this is going to help you to work out any wrinkles that might be in your piece. And you want to go around, and I'm just going to use a wet wipe, and I'm just going to go around and push, making sure that everything is down into that top coat. And it's touching the piece, and all of the images are down into the medium that we put down. And work out any of the extra water, pushing from the center to make sure that you get a good adhesion. Okay. Alright, now the next step is to let it dry. So I'm going to set this one aside, and we're going to let that dry. And you can heat it with a heat tool to help it to dry faster, if you desire, to do that. The one thing that you have to remember when you're working with a paint inlay and you're using a sealer like a top coat, or even if we use this paint that has a built-in sealer, you want to let your inlay dry, but as soon as it's dry, you're going to want to remove that paint inlay. If you're using a paint like a chalk paint that doesn't have a sealer in it, then you've got more time. I could put the chalk paint down, put my inlay down, and leave it overnight, and come back the next day, it's going to come off fine. But top coats and sealers, their job is to harden and seal and protect your project. And so if you leave those on too long, then your image is going to basically be decoupaged to your piece. So that's the one thing to remember if you're using something like a top coat. And for this, I picked up this green glass bottle. I guess this is like a vinegar bottle. And I'm not sure. I didn't even try to get the top off, but I'm not using it to hold liquid. It's going to be for decor only. So I'm just going to wipe it off. Make sure that there's no fingerprints or anything or oils on here. I actually have some Windex. I'll spray a little Windex on my paper towel because we're going to use a transfer. And I want to make sure that the transfer is going to adhere. Just wipe that off really well. Okay. These green bottles I just think are perfect to use in your Christmas displays. And so the transfer that we're using tonight comes from the Partridge Lane book. This is some beautiful transfers. You've got all of these beautiful little homes. We have the 12 Days of Christmas right here in little wreaths. Then we've got a bunch of different wreaths and Christmas trees. We've got some beautiful swags and ribbons. Some more houses. We've got the 12 Days of Christmas again here with the numbers and some more swags. And then we've got a little row of houses here. And tonight we're going to be using this transfer. We've got these beautiful ornaments, and then we've got a swag that we're going to use. So set that aside. So the way I envision this is these ornaments hanging from the swag. Now right now you see that they're not touching the swag, they're under it. So what we're going to do is we'll put these on our bottle first, and then we can lay that swag right on the top of those ribbons, so it looks like the ornaments are actually hanging from this little garland. So to do that, we're going to cut this apart, separating the row of ornaments from the garland. And this bottle has a little notch here in the back, so I want to make sure that that stays in the back. And these two ornaments are kind of in the middle. So I'm just going to kind of, gauge where I want it based on where this notch is. Now, working with round objects can be a little challenging. So we're going to use some things to kind of hold this bottle in place. So we're just going to put our paint bottles up here. Let's see if I can get this a little closer so you can see what I'm doing. Each transfer set comes with this little transfer stick, and if you're like me, you'll end up with a ton of these, and sometimes they're a little hard to see on your work surface. So I end up having them laying everywhere. I saw someone put a little piece of like painter's tape on there, which makes it easier to see. Whatever you need to do to make that work for you. So transfers are as easy as cutting them out, peeling your backing off. Now the images have a little bit of tackiness to them. That's what makes them adhere to your project. So you want to make sure that you're not touching, putting your fingers back there. Once you peel that backing off, you want to make sure that you're not touching. Okay, and we're going to lay this down. Now the thing with glass is pretty much once you lay it down, it's where it's going to be. You can't really do a whole lot of moving around with it because it's going to adhere pretty easily to the glass. Then you're just going to take your tool and you're going to rub. And you see I'm using just the flat edge of my tool and rubbing my design. And as you rub, you can start to lift up the transfer sheet. this top sheet. And you can see that the transfer is coming off. It is sticking to the glass. And so, see, I don't know if you can see that or not, but right there, some of that little ribbon did not attach. So I'm just going to lay my transfer paper back down and rub over it. And now it's attached. So you just want to go slowly, pulling that paper up as you go. And they kind of call this riding the wave. So you rub and you lift. And your image adheres down to your project. Now, I'm using this on glass tonight, but you can use this on painted surfaces. If you use it on a surface that's been painted with like a chalk paint, you want to put a top coat down. They recommend that you put a top coat down first. If you're using like the fusion paint that already has a top coat, then once it's dry, you're good to go. Now you do want to make sure if you're working on a painted surface that it is completely dry, because the adhesive on the back of these transfers can pull your paint up. So I've had that happen. In my video that I released earlier today, you will see that that on an ornament that I was making, a little piece peeled up the paint. And there's a fix for that. So if you watch that video, I show you the fix. Basically, I used some top coat, and basically took that little piece off the backer paper and then decoupaged it back onto the ornament. So you can fix it, but we're much happier crafters if we don't encounter those boo-boos. So just make sure that your piece has had adequate time to dry. That's the difference in using a transfer and a paint inlay. These projects I painted about 15 minutes before I started recording. So paint inlays, you're working with wet paint, so it's different. Transfers, you want to make sure that you're getting that paint good and dry. Okay, so we've almost finished getting this last ornament attached. Now once they're all on, you just want to rub over them, and you can do this. People do this with the carrier sheet, and just rubbing over it, or you can do it with your finger. You just want to make sure that it's all attached really well, that you've got good adhesion. Now these are beautiful, but they kind of look like they're just hanging out in space, right? So we need to use something to ground them, and that's what we're going to use the garland for. So the garland is going to help us to make our ornaments like they're not floating in mid-air. Okay? So again, I want to make sure that I'm getting it centered so that it goes across all of my ornaments. So I'm looking, and I've got it's covering this last ornament. It goes over the edge of that last ornament on that side and this side. So I'm going to keep my eye on this set of berries right here. I want it to be kind of right above the little rocking horse's head when we lay it back down. Okay, again, you're going to peel the backing off, being careful not to put your fingers where the image is. Okay. Alright, that's our berries right there. So we're going to just kind of lay it down, making sure that we're covering up those ribbons. And I'm just going to rub it with my finger, and then I'm going to grab my tool and start rubbing it on, transferring that image. And again, we're going to lift as we go. And just ride the wave. rubbing and lifting. The one thing that will keep your transfer from adhering to glass is oils or any residue that might be on the bottle. So you always do want to make sure that if you're going to put a transfer on glass that you clean it first. And then be very careful not to touch it until you get your transfer down. Okay, so there's that one. We're going to burnish it with our transfer sheet. Alright, so there we have our beautiful bottle. Now the ornaments appear to be hanging from that garland. I love using transfers because it can make your project look so nice, and it's just a simple, easy transformation. So there's that. That project is now complete. Now, if you use a transfer on wood, or you could use it on plastic, you can use it on resin, it's recommended that you put a top coat, that you seal it in. Now, because this is on glass, I'm not going to do that. The top coats that I have, the spray top coats, would make it look milky, or like it's etched glass. So there are some that are like super shiny, crystal clear. So if you want to use those, you can use those to seal it in. But this piece is just for decor, so I'm not really worried about sealing this one in. But if I used it on like a tray, or even a piece of wall art, I would seal it with a clear coat just to make sure that it's going to be protected and safe. So that's how easy the transfers are. And if you are interested in any of these IOD products, I do have them for sale on my website. My website is emptynestcreation.com, and you can purchase any of these IOD products from my website. If you're local, you live here in the area, then I have a booth at Main Street Vintage Market in Millbrook, and I have these IOD products and some of the summer collection still in my booth that are for sale as well. So if you're local, you can avoid shipping by going and purchasing it at the shop. Okay. So now once it's dry, you're going to come back in and you're going to mist it with water again. You want to get the entire paper inlay wet. And then I'm going to come back with the wet wipe and just kind of dab off the excess water. You don't want it to seep under your inlay because that paint is water soluble, and so if you get the paint side wet, it could smear your paint. Okay, so we let that just sit for a second. And then we're going to lift up the corner. And that's the thing, when you cut it really close, it's a little more difficult to get the edges up. But here we go. We're going to. And if you get some resistance, wet it some more. You don't want to pull because you might tear your inlay. And like I said, you can use these again, so you want to make sure that you're being gentle with it. It should just peel right up. Like I said, if you're having some resistance, then you should lay it back down and wait. Okay, so I'm not liking everything that I'm seeing here. Some of the deer's face did not transfer very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out my top coat. Spray our inlay again with water. And I'm just going to go back into these spots. Okay, and we're going to lay our inlay back down. We'll try that again. Let's lift up the other side and make sure there's not any places on this end that need that same. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it's not a huge big deal, but we don't. Oh, there's big chunks missing. Okay. So yes, we're gonna put some more top coat down. Okay, twist this side again and lay it back down. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to use my wet finger, rub that down. We're going to set that aside and let it dry some more because that was not working so great. It's looking so much better. Yes. Much better. So the key is always to make sure you put enough product down. I think that the problem was I didn't put enough of the clear coat down the first time. I didn't put a thick enough coat, and so it dried too fast and didn't have time to for the paint to transfer. So, ooh, isn't that pretty? Now you can see some of those lines, but this time I think that a lot of that is because the clear coat is on the edges here and not over the image, but we're going to let it dry. So you do have to seal this. You can use a spray sealer, or you can use a brush-on sealer. If you use a brush-on sealer, you just want to be very careful because, like I said, the paint is water soluble. So when you get it wet, it might bleed a little. So what is recommended is that you get your brush really wet with the top coat, and you just with a very light touch put it on. Like I said, I need to let this dry. This deer right here is still pretty wet, so we're going to let that dry, and then we'll put a top coat on. Okay, sorry, my camera went a little cuckoo crazy and was cutting itself on and off, so I had to switch to a different camera. So I missed getting the top coat on, but basically I just made sure I had enough product on my brush. I used a wide bristle brush, and you just want to make sure you get enough product on your brush and then just go over it one time. Now once you get one coat on, this paint's now sealed in, so I can go back in and put another coat on. I can put wax on, whatever I want to do now, and that paint's not going to smear. So that's what you want to make sure is that when you put that first clear coat on, if you don't spray it, and you could spray it, and if you're worried about it smearing at all, take it outside, give it a spray of clear coat, and then you can come back in again, and once that paint's sealed in, you can do whatever you want to with it. But these are the two projects that we completed tonight. Let me know what you thought about these projects. I think they turned out really, really nice, and they'll make a great addition to someone's Christmas decor this year. So thank you for watching. Thank you for giving me a little bit of your time tonight. I hope that I took some of the mystery out of the paint inlays for you tonight, and the transfers. They're super simple, and if you mess up, which I did tonight, then it's easy to just go back in and make it work. And if it completely messes up, then you can just paint over it and do something different. That's the great thing about these products, is that you can always adjust as you go. But again, thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in purchasing any of these products, then you can find them on my website, emptynestcreation.com. Thanks.